Dr. Rob Kiltz on our live today and talking with Robert Sikes, Keto Savage. I'm really excited to have him on. He's interviewed me and I really enjoy talking with him. I enjoy his website and so much education and inspiration. And even Lady Savage is something that we have to talk about, I think, at some point and get a little bit more in. So welcome, Robert. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderfully well. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
Well, we're here to listen and learn so much of what you've experienced in this keto journey. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this keto world and the health and wellness, physical improvement, life improvement, really.
Yeah. So I've been natural bodybuilding for about 14 years now, and did the standard bro diet approach. I bulked up, I cut down. And I saw success with that, but it wasn't sustainable and it wasn't healthy. I developed a bunch of disordered eating tendencies. So I was looking for an alternative that was healthier, and kind of stumbled upon keto by accident in 2015, I want to say. I was doing carbohydrate backloading, which was developed by John Kiefer. It's basically keto during the day and then a bunch of carbs at night. And I found that I felt better without the carbs. So I did carb backloading without carbs, which lo and behold is pretty much keto. And then I pretty much haven't looked back since. I earned my pro card status in 2017 with a strict ketogenic approach. And that's pretty much what I do now. I've been keto now for about 7 years, I believe.
Wow. And how do you think it's changed your life and how you feel and just how you live in general?
Yeah, so for me, like it really corrected my disordered eating tendencies with the foods that I was consuming. I had a really bad relationship with food. Post competition, I would binge on everything in sight and purge. And I didn't really feel that tendency to do that once I adopted a ketogenic diet. I didn't have the guilt associated with eating crappy foods because I was eating quality foods. And I was able to just moderate my intake much better, and my composition stayed within a healthy window, even post show with the ketogenic approach. So that was a step in the right direction. And since then, it's pretty much just been much more sustainable for me. My health markers have all improved. My hormone levels have all improved. My performance in the gym has gotten significantly better over the years. Less inflammation, so I can train more frequently. So yeah, from a bodybuilding standpoint, it's been really good for me.
And what do you mean by natural bodybuilding? I think you use the term natural. Tell me a little bit about that, because we're in the fertility world mostly, but it's health and wellness for everyone in order to be more fertile. So maybe we can introduce these concepts.
So when most people hear the word bodybuilding, they think of those like massive guys on the cover of, muscle and fitness magazines. And I've got a lot of respect for those individuals. They put in a lot of work, but those individuals are definitely using performance enhancing drugs, pretty much all kinds of drugs, in order to achieve that super physiological level of size and conditioning. Natural bodybuilding is a sport in which you're doing the sport of bodybuilding, but it's under all tested sanctions. So all the federations that are natural, they do some form of urinalysis testing or polygraph testing to ensure that all the athletes are not taking performance enhancing drugs. There's a pretty extensive banned substance list. And if you indulge in any of those substances, depending on the federation, you may be banned for the sport for 10 years or better. So for me, being a natural athlete, I've pretty much just stuck with good, clean foods and avoided all the super supplements, so to speak.
So no crazy powders and things which kind of have substances that may be, I guess, anabolic or androgenic. Is that kind of where it is?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much my only supplementation is like creatine, vitamin D, and an occasional protein powder. So very clean as far as supplements go. I mean, some of the different federations are incredibly strict on their banned substance list. Like they won't even allow you to do healthy doses of HRT therapy for people that are testing below normal levels. Like you can't just simply bump that up to what is quote unquote normal, because when you diet down for a show and your calories are lower, your natural testosterone levels are also going to drop as well. So if you're taking, TRT as a supplement and you're just maintaining a healthy, normal baseline, that's kind of abnormal in the context of a prep. So they ban you for that as well.
So a lot of what you're sharing is sort of more of a natural approach to health and wellness. And in your case, you're in the bodybuilding arena, which is kind of grown the area that you're focusing in. Tell me a little bit about Keto Savage, where that came from and how you started your website and all the things that you're doing and sharing.
Yeah, so when I started doing keto in 2015, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. There wasn't really much information about keto at that time. So I was just documenting my journey. I wasn't really speaking from a place of authority. I was just simply sharing what I was doing, what I was testing out. and, letting people know if it was working or not. When I did my 2017 prep and earned my pro status, that was all with a ketogenic approach, and I documented that whole journey as well. And that garnered a lot of interest because people couldn't believe that I was, achieving the conditioning that I had achieved without carbohydrates, without any of the things that people said you have to have in the sport of bodybuilding. So that gained some traction, some momentum. And then since then, I've just been really adamant about getting that information out there because I think it's a healthier alternative to what is currently in place and mainstream in the sport. So started the podcast, started the YouTube channel, and I've just been putting out content, nonstop for the past 7 years alongside my wife, Crystal. So yeah, we just been, putting that information out there.
Lady Savage, along with you, has some really great podcasts that can be found on Apple. Is that right?
Yeah. My podcast, the Keto Savage podcast, is where all podcasts are downloaded. She's been on my show several times. She doesn't have her own branded podcast, but she does a lot of the shows with me.
And you guys you have a book, I know. Tell us a little about your book and what the focus is.
Yeah. So the book is basically a consummation of all that I've learned over the past 7 years as a ketogenic natural bodybuilder. So I've worked with several clients over that time, and basically everything that I've learned for myself and what I've learned in working with those clients, I put into this book to basically make a blueprint for anybody that's wanting to step on stage and improve their composition via a ketogenic approach or carnivore. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand with the way I wrote the book. And honestly, like my principles, like most of my clients aren't competitive athletes. The principles apply whether you're stepping on stage or just simply wanting to lose body fat and preserve as much lean tissue as possible. So the principles are honestly pretty applicable to people that are not competing as well.
And so you do coaching. Who comes to you for coaching in general, and what is the average sort of coaching things that you talk about?
It's interesting, man. Like my brand, like my whole website, it's all bodybuilding. Like it's all masculine. It's all dark red and black and like savage. But most of my clients are probably middle-aged females, which is funny to me. It's interesting how that works out. But I've got a pretty broad array of clientele. I mean, they all just come to me wanting to improve their composition via a ketogenic or carnivore diet. Some of them are wanting to step on stage, so I coach them through that process as well. I've had a lot of people that have come to me that have been chronically under-eating, and they've heard me talk about the importance of reverse dieting to ramp up your metabolic rate and improve hormone function prior to going into a deficit again. So I feel like I get a lot of clients that are wanting to go in that direction because that's not something that's talked about near enough.
So, what I loved about your information and your energy, it's natural and real. It's sort of coming from your experience by doing it. And I'm sure that's such an important thing because an expert, we're looking for experts in life, but more and more, I'm looking for people who have experience and have done it and lived it as the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any acronyms behind my name. I don't have an MD, PhD, or any of that stuff. But I definitely practice what I preach, and I'm a boots on the ground kind of guy. And I've worked with over 500 clients. I've replicated the process that I've done for myself with them. So I've got a pretty proven track record, I feel. And people, I mean, I love what I do. Like being a coach and working with clients on the front line keeps me sharp. So I'm constantly learning as they're learning and figuring out, what's new and improved, what's better. How we can go about this more efficiently, more effectively. So coaching is something I'm super passionate about.
So do you see a lot of women and men that are looking for weight loss also, or just does it all go hand in hand, weight loss and sort of bodybuilding?
So I always like to tell people, whether they compete or not, to think of it in terms of having two objectives. Like you've got a building phase and you've got a cutting phase. Generally when people hear that, they assume you have to blow up and put on a bunch of unnecessary weight in the building phase, but that's not the case. You can keep it within a healthy window, but you're going to optimize building more muscle tissue if you're in a caloric surplus. So, ideally optimizing for that in a building phase is going to be kind of juxtaposed to a cutting phase in which you're optimizing for losing fat loss. Because you can build muscle and lose fat simultaneously, but you're not really going to optimize for either if you're trying to do both at the same time. Because by definition, to really make the most of your building phase, you need to be in a caloric surplus. So you've got enough nutrients coming in a surplus to build more tissue. And then if you're in a cutting phase, you ideally need to be in a deficit. So that's not going to be the optimal state for building muscle tissue, but it will be for burning fat.
Well, see, I'm 66 this year, and I don't do much in the way of weights or exercise and things like that. What are your general recommendations for how frequently and how much should you be lifting, and what type, and then I guess where does food come in quality, quantity, and frequency?
Yeah, so that's gonna be highly individualized. I mean, I personally train about 6 days a week. But I mean, anything is better than nothing. So if somebody's wanting to just, do 3 days a week of training, we can structure a good push pull leg routine with them. That way they're hitting all the muscle groups with, at least a single unit of frequency during the week, so that they're stimulating that muscle to grow and preserve that lean tissue. As far as food is concerned, everybody's macronutrient needs is going to be a little bit different, but I'd recommend all my clients eat higher quality foods when, given the option, obviously. And then I typically follow and recommend a ketogenic diet, which I would define as, single ingredient, wholesome, natural foods with higher dietary fat, optimal levels of protein, and very minimal carbohydrates. So you're not going to see me recommending a bunch of rice or potatoes or anything like that to my clientele.
How frequently do you eat, and what do you typically eat in a day?
So I do about two meals a day typically. And that's, for me, I eat about 3,300 calories is my maintenance or slight surplus for me. When I transition into a deficit for a cutting period, I'll drop that down over the course of 4 to 6 months to about 1,700 calories, very gradually and very strategically. And when I get to the lower caloric intake, I'll wind up condensing that to like an OMAD meal, because for me personally, from a physiological and psychological standpoint, I find eating one large meal in the context of those lower calories is more satiating than having multiple smaller meals sprinkled throughout the day that always leave me wanting more. So I'll do an OMAD approach in that context.
So what are your thoughts do you have any particular thoughts on vegetables and fruits and seeds and nuts? Because I know keto pretty much can almost include anything that's typically a higher fat. What are your thoughts on any particular food groups in the ketogenic that you discuss and share with people?
Yeah, so it's interesting, man. Like the keto space has evolved so much over the past few years. I mean, you get, in the beginning, it was like people were scared of protein, so they thought it was going to turn into chocolate cake once it entered their bloodstream. So they avoided protein. That's not really good. Now it's like protein's given a halo, so everybody's eating protein ad nauseum, and it's like there's people just assume that you can't overconsume protein, but that's not really the truth either if you're trying to optimize from a fat adapted standpoint. So there's a sweet spot for everybody, and everybody's going to have a unique protein threshold. I don't typically recommend fruits because in the context of a ketogenic diet and optimizing for fat metabolism, fruits don't really play that much of a role. I will include some vegetables just simply because I like the taste of some vegetables, but I mean, I could do what I do on a pretty much carnivore approach and the result would be pretty much the same. I don't feel like I'm experiencing any benefit from a performance standpoint with the inclusion of vegetables. I just like the change in palate every once in a while. But I would define my personal diet as like ketovore, I guess is the word to describe it. I mean, pretty much ketogenic. I mean, I consider carnivore like a subset of keto. And the beauty of ketogenic diet is that it gives me a little bit more variety as far as like different fat sources and things of that nature. And at different points in my prep will have a higher fat ratio. So being able to tap into certain oils and things of that nature that I'm not going to get if I'm just eating strict carnivore has been advantageous for me.
We're getting lots of good questions. Let's see. Jeff Ferguson talks about using gymnastic rings for a few months. What's your thoughts on, do you have any particular thoughts on I guess, gymnastics versus weights? I guess one is, using our own body weight and things like that.
Gymnastic rings are no joke. I don't personally train with them a lot, but I have, and they're humbling for sure. So, I mean, from a flexibility, from a mobility, from like a, self-awareness standpoint of what you're able to do with your own body weight, I feel like being apt at using those rings is a good skill to have.
And so what's your general routine in a week when it comes to weights or lifting and things? Are you, or one is getting ready for, I'm sure, a show, I guess, and the other is just, maintenance and things like that?
Yeah, so there's not really a maintenance phase that I have. I'm either building or cutting. So my weight training honestly doesn't really change that much between a building phase and a cutting phase. My cardio does and my nutrition does. I'll scale up the cardio quite a bit as I'm cutting for a show. But from a weight training standpoint, I tend to hold that pretty constant. I'm trying to progressively overload the muscle and lift heavier throughout my lifting career so that I've given my body reason to grow and build more muscle tissue. But I typically follow basically what I've done. I've built an 8-day rotational split in which I'm training 6 days for every 8-day window. in those 8 days, each muscle group is getting hit twice. One of those times is more of a heavy focus, so fewer reps, heavier weights, and then the other day is more of a hypertrophy focus with a little bit more repetition, a little bit lighter weight. So I'm targeting the muscle in different ways and kind of covering both ends of the spectrum. And that level of frequency with 2 times a week per muscle group has worked pretty well for me over the years.
So the cutting is, I'm assuming, losing some of the fat in order to show contour more than anything. And then the other is the building the muscle itself. So is building the muscle more of heavier, shorter reps? Is that
so it's interesting. I don't know where the this notion of if you want to tone, you got to lift lighter and more reps came from. But ideally, I like to lift heavy year round, whether I'm in a building phase or a cutting phase. That's going to be the main driver that gives the body reason to grow and build more muscle tissue. And what's interesting is in the context of a caloric deficit, your body is looking for ways to, preserve its existence, basically. And if you're eating fewer calories and you're not using that muscle, if you're not demanding it still lift that heavy weight because you've switched to lifting lighter weight at higher reps, then your body's going to be more likely to tap into that lean tissue to make up for that void that's been stripped from lower calories. So you want to continue to lift heavy, even in the context of a lower intake, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that's one of the best things you can do to preserve the lean muscle tissue you have. So I always advocate for lifting heavy, but not so heavy to the point where you're sacrificing form and risking injury. I mean, you want to lift as heavy as you can safely and sustainably.
So what do you think the value of a coach versus, hey, I'm just going to do this on my own and I'm going to be fine in all of this? Any thoughts and ideas on how to inspire people?
Yeah, so the first show I did, I bulked up to 230 pounds, and then I gave myself 12 weeks to cut down for the show. I lost 80 pounds in 12 weeks, and I did all of that on my own doing without a coach. And then after that show was over, which I won, I had no direction, so I put on 20 pounds in 24 hours after that. It was all unhealthy. That's what kind of led me down this disordered eating spiral of negative emotions with food and just really bad health for several years. So I think, especially when you're doing a show for the first time or just doing something as extreme as a, body composition change like this, having somebody that's been there and done that and has the perspective and then can give you the guidance is incredibly valuable, because then you don't have to spend your time wondering and guessing, and just fear of the unknown is crippling. So if you can have somebody that knows and points you in the right direction, you can just feel confident in those decisions.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think with YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and your site with coaching, that we all need someone to kind of help us along. My favorite class in high school was my weightlifting class, and it was 5 days a week, and it was just a great coaching and always having someone sort of giving us some direction and motivate, and then seeing others that are building and keep you moving forward. So tell us how people can find you.
Yeah, so if they type in Keto Savage on Instagram, or if they type in ketosavage.com, they'll find me. That's where all my platforms live. So if they type in Keto Savage, they shouldn't have any trouble finding me.
And do you do what other type of things? I know you do some cooking things with your wife, which I was watching. I found very interesting and it looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do recipes. So like we do a lot of content. We have like AMA videos, Ask Me Anything videos. We do recipe videos. We're going to do more training tutorial videos. We've got several different businesses. So we built this Keto Brick business, which is a meal replacement bar that's, ketogenic. We have an apparel line that we're working on that. And then we just are going to keep educating the public about how to optimize their composition via the ketogenic diet. So lots of stuff in the pipeline.
So what would you now? So I'm in the fertility space, and I'm helping those that are suffering from infertility, men and women, and women and men and singles also on both sides. Any sort of inspirational thoughts and ideas how to get them in moving into the space of light bodybuilding and keto and all these sort of areas?
Yeah. So from a fertility standpoint, from a health and hormonal standpoint, two massive mistakes I see people make is constantly and chronically eating at a deficit. That's going to wreak havoc on hormonal health and your metabolism, and then not eating enough dietary fat. So if you cover both those bases, that's going to put you in the right direction from a nutritional standpoint. And then from a bodybuilding standpoint, I mean, not everybody's going to be a bodybuilder and step on stage, and that's totally fine. But everybody's going to benefit from building and preserving more lean muscle tissue, more mass in that regard. So anybody is going to benefit from stimulating those muscles, whether they go into a gym and do it there, or just simply are active outside and moving the body like that. That's key right there. So anybody is going to benefit and take something positive from that.
I think what you said is actually we're all stepping up on stage. That's what life is all about.
Absolutely.
And so everything that you're sharing is helping us step on stage. And I think part of this isn't necessarily what we look like, it's how we feel as much as anything. And then I think that just doing the bodybuilding exercise makes you feel better in so many ways, in the keto and the apparel and all these ideas that I think are really inspirational and helpful. What about mental support and building a mental attitude for all this? What's your thoughts and ideas, and how do you help in that arena?
Yeah, so I mean, the mindset aspect, like I define bodybuilding as being more of a mental sport than a physical one, which is kind of counterintuitive because you see everybody up on stage flexing, but it's very much so a mental sport. It's the epitome of discipline and dedication and consistency over months and months and months. I mean, anybody can be a rock star in the gym, one day. Anybody can be a rock star with hitting their nutritional goals for one day, but doing so without fail for 4 to 5 to 6 months is the hard part. So being able to talk with these people and kind of tell them why they're doing this, keep reminding them of what their why is, and then telling them that, hey, look, you can be able to use these skills, these attributes long into your life, long past the show date is key. So playing the long game and doing that beyond the show, but just with your life, like playing the long game in life and having a focus towards longevity and living a quality life is paramount.
So what's been your most difficult experience in this keto lifestyle endeavor?
I mean, when I first started out, man, I was broke. I was $250,000 in debt, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was working a corporate job that I didn't like. So I quit that corporate job, found Crystal, we hit it off. And then we both just asked ourselves what it is that we're passionate about, and living a healthy lifestyle and paying it forward and instructing and inspiring and educating others how to do something similar has been my life's most fulfilling, purpose. So I'm super passionate about the space. I'm super passionate about the people and the community. So it was definitely hard in the beginning, but I look back at my life now and it's like, it's all been like, it's a dream that I'm living. I mean, I'm living my best life every single day.
Though that's exciting. Tell us a little about Crystal and Lady Savage and how that sort of fits in with what you're doing.
Yeah, so I was keto first. She wasn't, she was struggling with a whole bunch of gastric issues. Like she had a bunch of GI issues, slow transit, irritable bowel, all this stuff. And the doctors that she was seeing were basically giving her a pre-diabetic diet of, sugar water. So we switched her over to keto, and that worked well for her. She did a show, actually proposed to her on stage when she won her show. So that's kind of how we came to be in that regard. And then she's been putting that information as well, kind of catered towards females specifically. She's actually pregnant. We're having her first kid. I mean, honestly, man, any day now. Like she's 38 weeks this week. So we're probably going to be having a baby here in no time. And she's been totally ketogenic throughout her whole pregnancy. Very healthy pregnancy, no issues. She's been training every single day. She was doing squats today. So, I mean, yeah, she's been a rock star.
So she's been keto throughout the pregnancy. How's that working for her?
Perfect, man. The baby's healthy. We go in, see with our midwife like every week, and they get the heart rate. I mean, everything's moving right along like it should. Nice, healthy weight gain. She's still got total mobility. She honestly hasn't really had any of the issues that oftentimes plague people through pregnancy. Like she had a little bit of morning sickness for like 3 weeks in her first trimester. But because she's been so consistent with her nutrition, I think it's honestly one of the main reasons. I mean, she has not had near the issues that most people talk about throughout the pregnancy. I mean, she's been feeling great the whole way through.
Is she getting a lot of support from her practitioners on all of this? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're kind of going the hippie route, I guess you could say. I mean, we're doing a home birth. We've got a midwife. We've kind of avoided the main hospital scene quite a bit. So, but yeah, I mean, the midwife's been super supportive. And we have like a lot of our friends, like Jamie Seaman is one of my clients, and she's a known OBGYN in the keto carnivore space. And she's been checking off as well and saying, hey, look, everything you're doing is right. Keep doing it. So we're just rocking and rolling.
Well, that's one of the things that we're really emphasize. That's a whole part of these conversations, inspiring people, seeing other women doing it, and how men are thriving on this plan in so many ways. And we're live today. Let's see, Christy, Samara, let's see, Jen, and some of the fertility questions, and Mrs. K from Missouri, Vanessa. Lots of really great support groups here. How do people find the sort of the support groups through your website and things like that? What type of village and tribe have you developed?
Yeah, so actually, well, you've got a really active Instagram, and I'm constantly responding to people on DMs on that. We have a Facebook page. It's called Team Savage, and then I've got a Facebook group that I just recently started. It's called Ketogenic Natural Bodybuilding. So that's my own Facebook group. So yeah, and then just through all the different social platforms, and honestly through email as well. People can contact me via email, and I respond to all that. So I love plugging in and connecting and communicating with the people. So no issues there.
And tell us a little about your clothing line and things like that.
Yeah, so with the bricks, with the keto brick business, that's our main flagship business. So we've got several employees there. We keep all the production in house, and in doing that, in keeping all the production in house, like we have a big warehouse facility, and it's like, you know what, we've got this apparel that we want to start too, but rather than outsourcing that and getting it all from China or someplace, let's just do all that ourselves too. So I just bought a whole bunch of screen printing equipment. We're going to be making all of our own shirts in house as well. So everything that we do, we pretty much do with our own hands. So I like the process. I like the behind the scenes.
And we need to do more in house for sure. And that's really important for us to be creative in our day. So often we're just going off doing someone else's work and not doing our creative work for ourselves. Would you say?
Totally agree. I think this is like the apparel is kind of where my creative outlet's going to be. I think. I mean, I've got a lot of different legs in the business, but I'm excited to dive into that for sure.
And so in this, what's next for you guys? Where are you guys looking at? And I'm talking to you, and maybe is Crystal is part of this story. It seems like in the Savage brand.
Yeah, so we actually just built out another site, another brand that we're going to be launching. Probably going to launch it next year, but we're going to build this Live Savage brand out, and it's going to encompass a lot more than just nutrition. It's going to encompass our basically 5 main pillars that we feel kind of pour into our lives and has this symbiotic relationship, so everything improves. So those 5 main pillars being spirituality, health, wealth, relationships, and self-development. So all the things that we do in life, like we're going to start getting into homesteading, raising all our own food. And, I do a lot of hunting. So like explaining how to kill a deer, process a deer, cook the deer, like all aspects of life in those 5 pillars. That's going to become what a lot of the content is going forward. So super excited about that. Like our parenting strategy, all of that.
Can you tell us a little about how you incorporate spirituality and how do you talk about integrate that in your coaching and health and wellness?
Yeah, so honestly, man, it's been a journey for me. Like Crystal was raised very religious. I was not at all. So I kind of take what I've learned in nutrition, which is basically bringing people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, and just figuring out why they think the way they do with nutrition, and then doing a bunch of self-experimentation. That's what I'm going to be doing with regard to spirituality as well. So I've been just reading everything I can get my hands on. I've been like reading the Bible, reading everything. I want to bring a whole bunch of people onto my podcast. I'm going to have a separate podcast for this brand, and I'm going to bring on people from all walks of life, like, evolutionary biologists. I'm going to bring on Buddhist monks. I'm going to bring on pastors. I'm going to bring on everybody and just pick their brain as to why they think the way they do. Because I feel like these are all questions that people want to learn more about. So having a place where they can go and just, be a fly on the wall for all these conversations, I think will be worthwhile.
And so faith is such an important thing in life. And I really talk a lot about it. In medicine, we don't talk much about faith and spirituality. And it doesn't have to be religion either. It's all natural for humanity and an instinct that's really important for all of us.
Yeah, I agree totally.
And tell us a little bit about where your food and nutritional cookbooks and things like that are going.
Yeah, so I don't really have a cookbook per se, but like on the website, we have a big, Keto Savage kitchen. So lots of recipes and whatnot. And with the Live Savage homesteading brand, I just want to bring people along from like, square one, like how you grow a garden, what you grow in that garden, how you shoot a deer, how you process that deer and put your food on the table. Because I think, being self-sufficient and self-sustainable is key. That's something I'm super passionate about. And so really just peeling the curtain back and showing people, from steps A to Z, how the food that you procure lands on your plate is something I'm really excited about putting out there.
And so tell us a little about treats and desserts. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't eat treats and desserts. I mean, it's literally been 7 years since I've had a carbohydrate meal. I mean, the ketogenic diet is something I'm passionate about, something that's given me my health and fulfillment. Same is true for Crystal. So we eat high quality foods. I mean, the keto brick that we have is a very high quality bar. There's no filler ingredients in there, but the vast majority of my calories is coming from good, wholesome, single ingredient, nutrient dense foods, animal based foods. So that's where I hate to say that's where my bread and butter is because there's no bread, but that's pretty much what makes up the vast majority of my nutrition.
Steak and eggs.
Yeah, steak and eggs. There you go.
Steak and butter. Tell us a little about who inspires you most in this arena of keto. And
honestly, man, who inspires me most is just the people that I speak with. I mean, every single day I get an email from somebody that's totally turned their health around, lost 100 pounds, reversed their diabetes, improved the relationship with their kid because they can now get up and play with their kid. Like those are the people that inspire me. The people that are not the ones with massive Instagram followings, just the everyday folks that are just living their life and improving their health. So for me to be able to pour back into the community and give to them, and for them to have the want to contact me, send me an email and say, hey, look, Robert, something you said in the podcast inspired me. Something that you did on a YouTube video inspired me. Like those people, I mean, that's my oxygen right there. So being able to give back to them, that's what brings me a smile.
And so what's your excitement about becoming a father? How's that feeling for you?
It's crazy, man. I don't even know what to think. This will be our first kid, so I have nothing to really compare it to. But like she's 38 weeks in now, so I mean, I can see him moving all the time. I can feel, her stomach and feel him moving. And just to think that, I made another human with my wife, who's my best friend in life, and we're gonna, raise this little guy. I mean, I don't have the words, man. I'll need to check back in with me in about a month. I'll be able to answer that question better.
And tell us a little bit about hunting. And I talk a lot about carnivore and fatty meat based meals. But obviously, someone has to have hunted or raised that and processed it. You've been a hunter for a long time. Tell us a little bit about how it feels to be a hunter and processing the animal.
I love it, man. I mean, my dad's a biologist. We have a big farm in our family that's been passed down for 5 generations now. Mm-hmm. And it's that's where we go for Thanksgiving. That's where we do all of our hunting. We have deer camp there. And then we have that's a bonding experience for all the people in the family that hunt there. But then to hunt, to take a life and be there and respect the animal and practice so that you put a well-placed shot on that animal, but then to consume that animal with, I mean, there's been many a day where I've shot a deer and then was cooking that deer within 30 minutes. I mean, you don't get that anywhere else. So to be such a integral part of the circle of life, so much so that you are the reason for another's death, it makes you appreciate life all the more. So hunting is something I'm very passionate about. I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding around hunting, and a lot of people don't understand the benefit to it. But from a ecosystem standpoint, you're going to be able to perfect and protect that habitat in a healthy manner by culling the herd, by making sure that it's not getting overpopulated, by managing it properly, and to be able to do so and then use that as an outlet to nourish your body and nourish your family is something that I think more people should dive into.
Tell us a little about organ meats and things. What are your thoughts on organ meats?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of organ meats. I like what I like to do with deer, especially is I'll get all the organ meats, like the heart, liver, all that good stuff, and then I'll grind that up with bacon as well, because deer is pretty lean, incredibly lean. So I'll grind all that up with ground venison, all the venison organ meats, and then bacon or a fatty or a ground beef as well, and make these organ meat burger patties. That's been my preferred form of eating organ meats. But yeah, they're incredibly nutrient dense. I mean, obviously they nothing holds a candle to them from a micronutrient standpoint. No kale or superfood's going to compare to good quality beef liver or any kind of ruminant liver, honestly. So big fan of that for sure.
So in the deer, is it the liver, kidneys, heart?
Yeah, those are the main ones: liver, kidneys, heart. But yeah, I mean, I'll the heart. I like the tongue too. I mean, tongue's not really, it's technically an organ meat, but not really. I mean, it's more so just muscle. But yeah, I do that. I do a lot of elk hunting as well. And then just being able to, to eat that, eat as much of the animal as possible. I mean, I'm a big believer in putting a well-placed shot on the animal so it dies quickly and efficiently, doesn't have any excess suffering. It's going to be a much smoother death than it would get in the wild for sure. And then using as much of that animal as possible so that none is gone to waste, I think is very important.
What about from the deer and the elk, bone marrow? How do you use any of that from those animals?
Yeah, especially like on the larger bones. I mean, deer, especially in Arkansas, are not very big. Elk definitely are. But like for, some of the joints that are much bigger, like femur bones and whatnot, using those in like a stock or slow cooked roast. One thing that a lot of people don't take advantage of is like the calf muscle on a deer. Most people will just discard that because the calf muscle on a deer, there's a whole bunch of tissue in there, a whole bunch of sinew, and it's just really hard to, it's hard to make it tasty unless you do like a slow cooked ossobuco on it. And that is just melts in your mouth delicious. So people that just discard that, they don't know what they're missing.
So is that sort of a stew for hours and hours and hours, or is that roasting for hours, or slow and low?
Yeah, so what I'll typically do is I'll cut them into chunks. Like I'll leave it on the bone. I'll cut it into like 2 or 3 inch chunks with like a saw, and then I'll wrap some butcher twine on it so that it doesn't fall apart. I'll sear all sides of it in a skillet with some olive oil, and then I'll slow roast it for I think 3 hours or so. And then after that, it winds up just being really tender. And you can make like a gravy out of the stock that's left over. You can just reduce that down, and it's pretty good, man.
I gotta go because that sounds pretty good.
It is pretty good. It is pretty
well,
good.
We've lost the sort of the nuance and the experience of these slow roasts and all these things, and bone marrow, bone broth, collagen, and I was watching one of your. It was a meat pancake.
Oh yeah.
With some cheese, but you used tallow, and I think you used duck fat also, which really looked pretty good. And then also collagen, which is really important, and people I think don't recognize how important that is. Tell us, what about fish? Do you put much fish in your diet?
I do like fish. Yeah, Crystal's not much on seafood, so I don't really eat a lot of fish because she doesn't like fish, but I love fish. So actually, I think she's going to the grocery store right now, and I asked her to pick up some salmon or something because I do like the fish. I like mixing it in. I don't eat it every day by any means. I'm mostly a ruminant red meat kind of guy, but I definitely do love fish.
And on the female side, especially on maybe early pregnancy or those trying to get pregnant, back a little bit to the sort of exercise. What do you think about just directing people towards light weights and light exercise to sort of, at least keep building some tone and I don't like to say losing weight because I think weight and fat is important. That's not the focus, but for so many people it is. What's your sense on lighter weights and just more walking and things?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I said earlier, anything's better than nothing. So just getting them in the gym, getting them moving, stimulating the muscles, like just simply activating the muscle tissue, making that tissue demanded by the body. That's going to be, that's going to do wonders for preserving that lean mass. From her standpoint, being pregnant now, she's been working out every single day, hadn't skipped a beat this entire pregnancy, and her mobility is just so much better as a result. I can't imagine what she would feel like if she had skipped working out throughout the latter, especially like starting third trimester, like her ability to bounce back. I don't like using that word because a lot of people make it like a thing, like they want to have a baby and then bounce back immediately. You don't necessarily want to do that. You want to be strategic with it and do so in a healthy manner, let your body heal. But the fact that she's stayed active up to this point is going to make it much easier for her to recover once the baby comes.
So likely all of this activity, as you said, is going to make it easier also for the baby to be delivered.
Yeah.
And that should be a much easier process also.
Absolutely.
Anything I haven't asked today that you think is important? I've been going through your website. It's really fantastic. Watching Crystal also, between coaching, training, nutrition, education, and shopping. What other thoughts or questions haven't I asked?
Well, I don't know. I mean, for your audience, being a fertility expert, I think a lot of people have trouble getting pregnant, and there's probably there's obviously a lot of individuality there. Everybody's gonna have a different circumstance, but for Crystal and I think the fact that we had been so adamant about our nutrition before we ever even decided that we wanted to have a kid made having a kid really, really easy. I mean, it's obviously not the same for everybody, but I mean, there was like literally one try and it was done. So having the right nutrition going into it and letting that be a solid foundation is going to make everybody's health on all levels and all fronts much better.
And I think that's critical. And that's why I think we're having this conversation, because keto lifestyle at least is critical. Keto carnivore, but even if you're a vegetarian or Mediterranean or even choose a vegan, there are some ways to do this that are healthy, and what you put in the mind and the mouth and how you move the body. But we have to encourage people to move the body and focus on a healthy lifestyle. And that's really critical. And I think our standard American healthy lifestyle has not been that. And so we need to change it up, and a lifestyle that you're sharing is really critical and important. So we really appreciate you being on today with me, Robert. And
I appreciate the opportunity. Always a pleasure.
So tell us again where everyone can find you.
So Keto Savage for me, Lady Savage, or the.lady.savage for Crystal. That's where you can find us.
All right. And again, to everyone, just for sharing today, we appreciate it. And we look forward to meeting with Robert again in Keto Savage and more. So God bless, and thank you everyone for sharing today. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah.